Welcome to Annie Podcast. Today's episode is an intensive exploration of the unwritten rules of social interaction and human psychology. We are moving beyond surface-level tips to understand how to read people, protect our energy, and build a circle of truly high-quality relationships. Drawing from the sources, we have structured this deep dive into 6 comprehensive pillars of communication. As we grow older, we slowly realize that adult social life is far more complex than the simple lessons of kindness we were taught as children. As children, we are told that being kind, helpful, and accommodating will naturally lead to good relationships. But adulthood reveals a deeper truth. Kindness without discernment often leads to exhaustion, resentment, and silent exploitation. One of the most important skills in adult life is learning how to recognize what we can call no-effort people. These are people who exist somewhere in your social orbit but contribute nothing meaningful to your life until the moment they need something from you. They may not check in on you for years. They don't ask how you are doing. They don't celebrate your milestones or support you in difficult times. And yet, one day they suddenly reappear with a casual message, "Hey, how are you?" At first, it feels friendly, familiar, almost nostalgic. But almost always, the next message reveals the real reason for their sudden interest. They want to borrow money, they need a favor, or they invite you to an event where your presence or your gift is expected. In these moments, a painful realization surfaces. To them, you are not a relationship, you are a resource. They invested no time, no emotional presence, no consistency in your life. Yet they feel entitled to your energy the moment it becomes useful to them. For empathetic and responsible people, this situation creates inner conflict. You may feel a subtle guilt, a sense of moral pressure, what we can call a hero complex. A voice inside you whispers, "If I can help, shouldn't I?" But this is where maturity begins. Understanding that kindness must be placed correctly. If someone has never thought of helping you in their ordinary life, you are not obligated to prioritize them in their emergencies. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. The most effective way to deal with no-effort people is not confrontation, anger, or emotional explanations. It is calm distance, polite, firm distance. You do not need to give long excuses when you refuse. "I don't have it" is a complete sentence. You do not need to apologize excessively or explain your finances, time, or emotional capacity. Over-explaining signals uncertainty, and uncertainty attracts exploitation. When you maintain a firm but respectful distance, you quietly communicate that you are not an easy target. Remember this: warmth is valuable currency. Not everyone deserves access to it. Sometimes professionalism is not coldness, it is self-respect. One of the most common mistakes emotionally intelligent people make is believing that clarity will fix disrespect. We believe that if we explain our feelings carefully enough, kindly enough, logically enough, the other person will finally understand. So we write long messages, we pour our thoughts into paragraphs, we relive the hurt just to articulate it perfectly. But here is the hard truth. If someone consistently disrespects you, it is rarely because they do not understand. Most of the time, they understand very well. They just don't care. When someone ignores your messages, cancels plans without explanation, or speaks to you dismissively, those are not communication errors. Those are choices. And when disrespect is a choice, no amount of explanation can correct it. Trying to teach someone how to treat you through emotional essays often backfires. It drains your energy while giving them power. You reveal your wounds to someone who already showed you they are careless with your feelings. Silence, on the other hand, shifts the dynamic completely. Silence is not weakness, it is a boundary without negotiation. When you stop explaining, you stop auditioning for respect. You communicate something powerful without saying a word. I see who you are, and I am stepping away. Many people fear silence because it feels unfinished. We want closure, we want acknowledgement, we want the other person to say, I understand, I was wrong. But closure does not come from others, it comes from clarity within yourself. If someone truly cared, you wouldn't need them to convince them to care. A single sentence can sometimes say more than 1,000 words. I felt disappointed by your actions. Say it once, calmly, without accusation, and then observe. If they respond with defensiveness, indifference, or mockery, you have your answer. Do not argue with someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. In the digital age, emotional exposure carries another risk. Messages can be screenshotted, shared, mocked, or taken out of context. While you are being vulnerable, the other person may be emotionally detached, or worse, entertained. This is why emotional processing should happen in safe spaces. Write it in a private journal, talk to a trusted friend, or even speak it out to an AI, where your emotions are held without judgment. Do not give your raw pain to someone who already mishandled you. There is also a quiet power in leaving without announcement. When someone stands you up, disrespects your time, or shows inconsistency early on, believe them. Do not argue for a second chance they did not earn. You cannot negotiate character. Silence is not avoidance, it is alignment. It is choosing peace over performance, and the more you practice silence where explanation once lived, the stronger your boundaries become. One of the clearest markers of emotional maturity is how a person responds to other people's joy, not how they respond to pain, failure, or loss, but to success, because pain invites sympathy, but success triggers comparison, and comparison is where insecurity quietly reveals itself. In everyday conversations, many people are not actually listening, they are waiting for their turn to speak. They listen with an internal scoreboard, measuring who is ahead, who is behind. When you share something meaningful, their response isn't curiosity, it's competition. This is not confidence, it is unhealed insecurity disguised as conversation. A person with low emotional intelligence often cannot sit with someone else's achievement without needing to shrink it. If you say you passed an exam, they mention a higher score. If you say you bought an apartment, they question why you didn't buy a bigger one. If you say you're proud of a small win, they remind you how far you still have to go. On the surface, these comments may sound casual, even harmless, but underneath they carry a subtle message: your joy makes me uncomfortable. And so, instead of regulating their own feelings, they regulate you. They lower your excitement so they can feel taller. High EQ individuals move differently. They are not threatened by other people's progress. They do not see life as a zero-sum game. When someone shares a success, they lean in. They ask questions, not to interrogate, but to understand. How did you stay consistent? What was the hardest part for you? You must be proud. You worked for this. This is sincerity, and sincerity is emotional intelligence in action. It signals safety. It tells the other person, you don't have to shrink around me. Over time, people remember how you made them feel, not your advice, not your opinions, not your achievements. They remember whether you allowed them to exist fully in your presence. Competitive conversation creates distance, even if the tone sounds friendly. Sincere conversation builds trust, slowly, quietly, permanently. If you find yourself constantly needing to one-up others, pause. Ask yourself what you are protecting. Often it is a fragile sense of self-worth. And the irony is this: the more you compete, the lonelier you become, because no one feels safe celebrating around someone who needs to win every conversation. True confidence does not announce itself. It does not need to dominate space. It is calm, it is grounded. High-quality relationships are not built on who is better. They are built on mutual recognition. I see you. When you stop competing, you start connecting. When you stop comparing, you start understanding. And when you choose sincerity over superiority, you attract people who are emotionally safe. These are the people who celebrate your wins without calculating their own, who sit with your struggles without turning them into lessons about themselves. This is the EQ of sincerity, and it is one of the rarest, most valuable social currency you can develop. In the beginning, charisma gets attention. Confidence opens doors. A strong presence makes people curious. But none of these things make people stay. What makes people trust you is not how well you speak, but how consistently you act. Credibility is built slowly, quietly, without applause. It is not created in moments of intensity, but in habits of reliability. Anyone can sound confident on a good day. Anyone can speak passionately when emotions are high, but only emotionally mature people remain consistent when motivation fades. High EQ is not about impressing people, it's about being dependable. There is a quiet power in being predictable in the best way. People trust those who show up the same way again and again. Not perfect, just steady. Many people confuse confidence with credibility. Confidence is how you present yourself. Credibility is how your behavior aligns with your words over time. You can be confident and unreliable. You can be quiet and deeply credible. In leadership, relationships, and self-respect, credibility always outlives charisma. People don't trust the loudest voice in the room. They trust the one whose actions never contradict their promises. Emotional intelligence means understanding this early. It means choosing discipline over dramatic self-expression. It means valuing long-term respect over short-term admiration. Many people lose credibility not because they fail, but because they explain too much. Over-explaining is often a sign of insecurity. High EQ individuals let patterns speak for them. They don't promise excessively. They don't justify every delay. They don't narrate their growth. They simply do the work and keep doing it. Over time, this creates a sense of safety. People relax around those who are reliable. There is no emotional guessing game, no anxiety about inconsistency. This is why credibility is deeply attractive, not flashy, not exciting, but grounding. If confidence is the spark, credibility is the fire that keeps burning. High EQ teaches you to build a reputation you don't need to defend. You don't need to convince people when your actions already have. In a world obsessed with image, credibility is rare, and rare things are valuable. When you prioritize consistency, you attract calmer relationships. You stop needing approval. You stop performing. You become someone people can rely on, including yourself. This is emotional intelligence in its most practical form. Not what you say when eyes are on you, but what you do when no one is watching. One of the clearest signs of emotional maturity is knowing what not to ask, not to share, and not to react to. In a world that encourages oversharing, curiosity without boundaries has become normalized. People casually ask about income, family trauma, failed relationships, and personal history, not because they care, but because they feel entitled to know. But refined people understand something crucial. Privacy is not secrecy, it is self-respect. You don't owe access to your inner life just because someone is curious. You don't need to explain your wounds to be considered honest, and you don't have to answer every question just because it was asked. High-value individuals treat their personal life like a vault. Not everyone gets the code. Not everyone is trusted with sensitive information. And this selectiveness is not arrogance, it is discernment. Many people confuse openness with depth. They believe that asking personal questions creates intimacy. In reality, it often creates discomfort. Asking someone how much they earn, why they divorced, or what trauma they carry does not make you close, it makes you intrusive. True closeness is invited, not extracted. People open up naturally when they feel safe, not pressured. This is why emotionally intelligent people rarely ask invasive questions. They allow silence. They let others reveal themselves at their own pace. And, ironically, this restraint makes others trust them more. There is also power in not oversharing your own life. Some people tell everyone their plans, finances, fears, and struggles, then wonder why they feel exposed, judged, or sabotaged. Information is energy, and when you give it away too freely, you lose control over how it's used. Not everyone who listens is supporting you. Some are collecting data. Some are comparing. Some are waiting for you to fail. This doesn't mean you should become paranoid. It means you should become intentional. Share selectively. Speak when it adds value, not when it relieves anxiety. Gossip is another violation of the vault. People who constantly talk about others' lives, mistakes, and secrets reveal more about themselves than about anyone else. Gossip is rarely about concern, it's about distraction. It distracts from their own stagnation. It creates a false sense of superiority, and it signals emotional insecurity. High-quality people don't need to tear others down to feel relevant. They focus on growth, not gossip. When you refuse to engage in gossip, you become different. People may initially find you boring, but over time they will see you as safe, someone whose presence doesn't come with risk, and safety is magnetic. Respecting privacy also means respecting context. If you meet someone in a professional environment, don't force personal intimacy. If you meet someone through a shared activity, let the conversation stay there. Not every interaction needs to become deep or emotional. Depth comes from consistency, not interrogation. Over time, people will show you who they are. You don't need to rush the process. In fact, rushing often ruins it. Ultimately, the way you handle privacy teaches others how to treat you. If you answer every question, people will keep asking. If you explain every boundary, people will test them. But when you calmly withhold, redirect, or stay silent, you set a standard that says, I respect myself, and people who are worth keeping will respect you more for it. The rest will fall away, naturally. And that's not a loss, that's clarity. After all the filters, boundaries, silences, and standards we've discussed, everything ultimately leads to one core principle: authenticity. Not the loud kind of authenticity that demands attention, not the performative kind that overshares pain for validation, but the quiet authenticity that doesn't need to prove anything. This kind of authenticity is magnetic. You don't chase people. You don't advertise yourself. You simply exist in alignment, and the right people recognize it. Many people believe they need to become someone else to be accepted. They exaggerate their success. They borrow status that isn't theirs. They talk louder, dress flashier, act more confident than they truly feel. But this performance attracts the wrong audience. It attracts people who are interested in surfaces, not substance. People who will disappear the moment the illusion cracks. Authenticity, on the other hand, filters automatically. When you are honest about where you are, not where you wish you were, you repel opportunists, and you attract people who respect effort, integrity, and truth. High-quality individuals can sense authenticity without words. They see it in how you listen, in how you don't rush to impress, in how you don't oversell your achievements. Confidence to them is calm, not loud. Power is subtle, not aggressive. And credibility is built through consistency, not charisma. This is why some people walk into a room and instantly command respect without saying much. They are not trying to be seen. They are simply grounded. Authenticity also means being honest about your journey. If you're still building, say you're building. If you're learning, admit you're learning. If you don't know something, say, I don't know. This honesty is not weakness, it's strength. It shows self-awareness, it shows security, and it builds trust faster than any exaggerated success story. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with clarity and sincerity. When you live authentically, something interesting happens. Your circle may become smaller. You may be invited less. You may not fit into certain rooms anymore, but what remains will be real. Conversations deepen, energy feels cleaner, and relationships stop feeling draining. You stop performing, you stop explaining, you stop proving, and in that stillness, you find your people. Authenticity is not about being liked by everyone, it's about being respected by the right ones. It's about building a life where you don't feel the need to shrink or exaggerate, where your presence is enough, where your silence has weight, and where your values speak louder than your words. As we close this episode, remember this: you don't need to impress to belong, you don't need to explain to be respected, and you don't need to perform to be valued. Protect your energy, set your standards, speak less, observe more, and live honestly. Because when you do, the right people don't need convincing, they simply stay. Thank you for listening to Annie Podcast. This space is for those who choose clarity over chaos, depth over noise, and truth over performance. If this episode resonated with you, take what fits and leave the rest. Until next time, stay grounded, stay sincere, and stay true to yourself.